Well, hello there. It's Coach Joe and Coach Dean, and we are back on Runner's Bench next to the Arizona Canal, talking about mental issues.
Which we are.
Which we are. Interesting place to start. Well, so in our last episode, we were talking about all the kinds of things that can go through your mind as you get ready for races, during races. And we wanted to continue the conversation this week on first we're going to start with the differences between racing competitively and racing for time. So racing versus your competition and racing for time, and how some different mental aspects might play in that.
Yeah.
So first let's draw that distinction. So
Okay.
you can certainly go out to a race and just be running for time,
Right.
not paying attention to the people that are
Go
around
set your
you.
PR. Go set your personal record.
Exactly. And another whole different situation would be you're racing to win, and you've got the people around you. You have to figure out how fast they're going to go and things like that. How might that be different? Well, let's just take this racing to win idea. You have a field of people, and none of them go out nearly at their pace because they're all feeling themselves, each other's pace capabilities out. We see that a lot of times in marathons, tactical marathons like the New York City Marathon, where these guys that can run 4:45 miles are running 6-minute miles for the first couple miles because nobody wants to take the lead.
Right.
So I think that's a good way to make that distinction. They're all trying to figure out who's going to lead, and it's about racing each other versus just trying to see how fast they are.
And let me expound and include a whole other group before you get carried away here thinking, oh, well, I never win races.
Yeah.
We're also addressing, that person, I don't care whether you're a 9-minute miler, but you show up at all these 5K races, and, there's this lady over here that you're always close to, and you want to beat that person today.
Yeah.
We're talking about that situation too,
Yeah.
because we know that you're similar in abilities, and given the right day, you don't know who may win. So when we talk about winning, put this in quotes, it's not just being first. We're talking about winning against that other person or that group of people that you might be very competitive with.
Yeah, those rivals, those
Yeah.
people that are out there. There was a guy, I can't remember his name now, but we always used to finish within 1 or 2 seconds of each other, and it was often my goal to try to beat that guy.
Yeah.
And so how might that affect my race strategy? Well, for one thing, I want to find out if he's there, and I want to find out where he is
Right.
on the starting line, and then maybe I want to put myself right on his shoulder, or maybe I don't want him to see me at all, and I want to be very distant from him.
Right.
There could be a lot of different ways we might play that.
Right. So the first thing that we are talking about now is, in our earlier episode, we talked about, well, what percentage is mental? Well,
Yeah.
first of all bets are off. If someone is physically superior,
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter, and that's not what we're talking about. So if I go up against someone who can do a 2-hour and 10-minute marathon, and I can do 3 hours,
Yeah, doesn't
okay,
matter.
and he runs with me right till the end, it really doesn't matter because they can turn in a 4-minute mile at the end. So we're not talking about people who have disparate physical abilities. We're talking about similar abilities, similar shape, showing up, and now it's how do I beat this person,
Right.
and that angle. So as Joe's saying, so you have a number of different approaches to take. One of the first things to do before race day ever occurs is you'd better know yourself. Do you run better from the front? Do you run better from the back? Do you not like being passed? What are the things that trip your trigger and make you feel deflated versus enthused? You have to know yourself first, play to your strengths, before you ever try to play off of someone else's weaknesses.
Yeah, in the last 2 weeks I can give some good examples and talk about some of these. In one race I went out at a fairly easy pace because I was helping somebody out, and the leaders were ahead of me, and I reeled them in at a much faster pace than I would normally run because I was coming from behind, and that it brought me from a position of strength. I saw those guys up there and I said, well, I'm going to go up and get them, and I got them and passed them. Just this weekend I was out racing, and the guy was sitting on my shoulder, and he was a much faster runner than me, and we went around the turn and he took off, and it was like I said, well, I don't think I'm going on with that one today. So my reaction to that was, well, normally I would feel those things out and I would say, well, let's see where he goes, and then maybe I'll hunt him down. But that day mentally it was he had broken
Right.
through.
Right.
It was probably his pick of when he went, because it was very early in the race. It was only 1.5 miles into a 5K versus 100 yards to go. That'd be different.
Yeah.
But you really have to know your triggers, like Dean says. So
Yeah. So here was a situation at the end that he picked a good part that He didn't know you, of course, so he didn't know whether it was good or not.
Yeah.
But he went, and so you have to size it up. At that moment, you have to make a lot of mental assessments.
Yeah.
How do I feel? How do I react? How long can this person keep it up? Are they really my capability or not? You're doing all these assessments, and mentally now, if you give it, say, I just can't, or not my day, or boy, my breathing's off. If I put a push on now, I'm going to crash. A lot of things go on to this mental component, and you've got to control that very carefully at that point in time. It could have been that he had just enough in him to say that psychologically he said, you know what, God, if I could just make a break and build 30 meters, 40 meters on you, I can back off, recover, and I think I got him.
Well, that's an interesting point because certainly you could do that, and he didn't take off and keep going that pace. He took off, put about 50 meters on me, and then slowed down. And the question that I had for that next 2 miles was, well, if I catch him, is he just going to take off again, or did he just have enough to pull away? My reading of the situation was he was a lot faster, and that he just did enough to gap me, and then he was going to sit back and win the race.
Right.
So, you don't know. And this is something you brought up a while ago, which is you need to know your competition. And it's different if you're in the Olympics or the New York City Marathon. And
everybody knows everybody.
Yeah, you study these people and your capabilities are really similar. But at a local road race, I mean, how can you know? Yeah.
But it really does underscore something about this mental aspect. Until you put in the surge to catch back up with him, you will never know whether that was a breakthrough performance, whether that was you might have outdone or whatever. And so on the mental aspect, the message to everyone, and we've all done this, but you have to, here's where we have to practice to get tough. It's, if you're really racing, then it's, you got to hang in there. And it's, what would you do? What can you do to stay with him so he doesn't gap you 50 meters and deal with the fatigue factor later? What we do is we have the fear of the fatigue, the breathing, getting out of breath, whatever, and we say, not now. Whereas on the mental aspect, it's, I'm going to stay with them, and I'll stay with them right till as long as I can. I'll deal with the fatigue of this surge later.
Right.
You keep putting off those decisions, and that keeps you going one step further, a little bit faster. That's mental toughness.
And you see this in marathons too, where people are, somewhere up there, and maybe they don't go with that move, but what they're banking on is that the person ahead of them maybe poops out.
It's truly a tactical issue.
Exactly.
It's, I see them going, we got 10 miles left in the marathon. They can't keep that for 10 miles. I'm sure of it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when they'll come back, but I'm going to bet, I'm going to let them go. I'll get them later.
Oh, that's
tactical.
Yeah, but from a mental standpoint or a confidence standpoint,
you'd better be confident and patient.
Yeah, patience is where I was going to go. Is that a lot of times it's let's just let this play out and not do something rash, because I know I can't run 4:55 for the next 10 miles, but I know I can run what I can run, and it's possible that by just doing what I plan to do, that this situation is going to change.
Right.
And so being able to let things play out is really important.
Right. Now, again, on the mental side, something if you happen to be the superior runner, remember what I said up front was physically, if you're superior, then we're not really talking the same. There is something you have to remember, and that is if a physically superior athlete is stupid about tactics, and let's say, Joe, there's no doubt you're in better shape than me, but you stay back with me. You know what? On a track, I think I can take him 400. Only for 400 meters.
Maybe, yeah.
But if that were true,
Right.
It's not. If it were true, though, you would make the fatal flaw of going easy and saying, I'll just pick him at the end because I'm better than him.
That's right.
Because you've played into my strength. And for me, nobody ever beats me in the last mile. That's always been my saying. It's never changed, because I am so strong in the last mile. I'll hunt people down. I know that both mentally and physically. That's my forte. So if you play into my forte, even if you're better, you jeopardize truly winning.
And I've often made the exact opposite conclusion, is I'll be with somebody earlier in a race or maybe midway through a race, and I'll say, I do not want to be with this person at the finish line. They look fast, they look strong. I'm going to move now and get ahead of them. And then, if maybe there's enough of a gap that I don't have to deal with a sprint at the end. And then you pay attention to them.
But see, that is the exact counter of how you would race someone like me. Yeah. You don't want me around at the end. You know you don't, in shape or not. So that's the exact tactic. You say, let me lose them fast, and not even leave this thing up to question. And mentally, you have to be tough to be in the lead and go.
Put the surge on early.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
then keep looking over your shoulder.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Konstantina Tomascudita did that in the Olympics
That's
in the
correct.
Beijing Marathon last year. She took off at mile 13, and the rest of the field said, you know what, she's not going to hang on. But she did.
She did.
and that worked out for her.
Yep.
She probably wouldn't have won in a sprint
Right.
against a lot of the people that were there, but they let her go too far, and
Right.
and that's tactics.
Yeah. Another good example was the American trials, where Castor caught Boulay, where she had gone out and she'd been
Yeah.
leading for many miles.
20
but
miles,
it's
yeah.
like very measured, and within 2 miles of the finish, or mile and a half, whatever it was, ended up catching her and going by because she knew her capabilities and
Yeah.
said, "Yeah, okay, now I'll go."
Yeah, that was really interesting. I was actually there at that race
Yeah.
and on the course watching, and she just was hanging back for the first 20 miles or so, and when she turned it on, it was like another set of gears, and it was clear that she was confident. She didn't mind how far back she was because she knew that she was just going to reel the front runners in,
Exactly.
and that's what she did. So we started off this segment talking about the distinction between racing for place or for tactical racing reasons versus time trialing or running for your own. There are certainly times where we're not going to look at the competition around us because
correct.
there's other things on our minds, like setting a PR.
Right.
Any differences there that we can point out?
Yeah, here's where you have to be very disciplined. So here's where you have to know pacing. You have to know how you feel specifically, from the rhythm of your legs and the turnover to the breathing patterns and how relaxed your arm carriage is. You've got to be focused on you and solely you. There are other people around, but that's not your issue. It's, can I click off these splits that I've predetermined will yield me my PR? Very different mental ability. Many people cannot do that, whether it's on a track or anywhere else. That time trial ability where they can push themselves, nobody being around.
Yep.
Put me on a track, give me a clock. Can you do it? Some people can, some people can't. So a very different kind of tenaciousness or mental toughness for it.
Yeah, it's a real interesting situation that we've seen with Paula Radcliffe a lot of times, where she's just running her own time, and other people may try to run with her, but she's really clearly not paying attention to what they're doing. She's just focused on where
Yeah.
where she's
Stay with me if you can.
Yeah, and she's the fastest, and she is fast.
That's right.
Yeah. So, well, I think we're probably out of time on this segment, but and we're about to have our first rollerblader go by of the season. Here she goes. Look at that. And we've been here for 22 minutes.
I know.
Filming, and we haven't
Well,
had
actually
a single
several
runner.
weeks.
Well, no, right here,
Yeah.
and we haven't had a single runner go by. But yeah, that was our first
Yeah.
rollerblader of the series too. Anyway, we're really happy that you joined us today. We'll be back with another segment, and we're going to pick up the conversation where we left off. Thanks for joining us today from Runner's Bench in Chandler, Arizona, and we'll see you next time.